I will start directly with the lecture. It focuses on building resilience in museums from the viewpoint of leaders, targeting the attitude change and somehow the necessity to rethink how we work. The presentation will focus on three challenges: the need to change, how to run institutions in difficult times, and how to stay relevant in new normal. And when we speak of new normal, it means that things are not the same anymore. We have to accept it and see how to adjust. The business as usual is out of question. Everyone can agree on that. But what steps do we take to put into practice the necessary new steps and attitudes? Anyone running a museum, not only a museum, of course, and who has to organize everyday work, witness how difficult it is for people to make changes. When change is mentioned, everyone thinks that the others are those who need to change. It is always easier to talk about changes than to implement them. This illustration really gets the idea how it works in practice. So why is it so difficult to make changes? The reason may lie in the fact that it requires a different point of view. You are just asked to be self-critical, to step out of your business conformity. Extra efforts are required. The greater change is needed. Somehow you have to change the architecture of your work. Change everything. So it's really that everybody expects new things from you, and that it puts additional stress to the people, especially in crisis. However, life-threatening situations push you into new circumstances immediately. You do not have time to think, you simply find yourself in new realities. We learned it from multiple disasters in 2020 in Zagreb. We have just seen how it worked in New Zealand. People had to find solutions and employ practices that they would normally not do. The basic challenge is when in the course of time, solutions are not found. Threats stay, and the situation is not improving. And this also is the time when we have to detect weak points. What is wrong, how our institutions are managed? Can we do better to build a scenario for building resilience? Because obviously no part of the world we are talking about, everywhere there are challenges and there were things not done properly in order to get us prepared. Not all changes are considered bad, of course. Some have been accepted quickly, like switching to work from home, in spite of the fact that labor legislative has not been properly introduced here in Croatia and many gray areas are present. No one is bothered. Working from home, some find efficient and time-saving, some feel additional burden, some who hardly meet their obligations in the office may experience the same problem at home. We may be honest and say that museums, the public museums, do not have to deliver to earn income, so the stress shouldn't be so high. But people are not equally stress resistant. The impact this situation, this COVID crisis has on people's lives has been immense, unprecedented. The way of life has changed, and not only our workplace. For leaders, it is also a difficult period because leaders, whether they are directors or senior management staff, are human beings too. It may sound surprising to many, but they are. And the decision making in difficult situations is really difficult. It's more stressful when you are responsible not only for your work and yourself, but for the others. And in the process of trying to find good solutions, you have to make mistakes, you have to try, do it again. Many good leaders had different visions for their institutions before 2020 brought new normal. Finding solutions, of course, takes time. And for museums, it also means that the proper governmental support is needed. You cannot rely only on your institutional capacity. Resources are scarce or non-existent. In Croatia, many public museums completely are depending on our founders. For all major decisions, you have to obtain approval. The long-term planning has also been challenged, and scenario planning came in, as we heard in our keynote session. Staying flexible and being responsive to change is a must. However, this should be expected not only from institutions, but also from other key stakeholders. Unfortunately, many address their institutions in the same way they used to do before. This is certainly not the way how you build resilience. Crisis showed another aspect of our work, how quickly museums and other cultural institutions found themselves in troubles. And we have to ask ourselves, why is that? Many museum leaders worldwide think this is an obvious sign that the sector was not trained to build resilience, and it also showed how close to the edge of feasibility the institutions are operating. There is no reserve. The chronic deficiency of resources is the reason why there is no ground for building resilience, and the vicious circle starts. A good way to begin the change would be to reflect where we were leading up to this moment. Why have we become so vulnerable? In crisis, we focus so much on the response and reaction to the actual disaster. And we haven't talked much about how prepared or unprepared we were when the disaster started. In the past, the focus was on more programs like this PI shows, for example, the support on national level to museum programs. As you can see, 70%, more than 70% went on exhibitions, and only 1% went to the programs for collection care and prevention. With EU funding, also more and more new premises were opened, many to support cultural tourism, and now both sectors, culture and tourism, are in trouble. So we have to say that the financial support for museums has been in decline for decades. So pushing new projects where you have difficulties to support existing institutions may also have a price in future sustainability. Lessons should be learned, and now we have to find a way how to build a more resilient museum. We may start with people, of course, how to create more roles in staff to be flexible, and unbalance exists here too. This is also a short graph that shows the jobs division in Croatian museums, and you can see how unequally the roles have been distributed, curators prevailing, very few people employed dealing with informatics, and we know that in crisis, present day crisis, the whole life went online. Our job descriptions are outdated, and we really have to introduce new structures and fill in the knowledge gaps. Perhaps we need to avoid traps from the past by setting achievable goals, which can be accomplished by smaller, flexible teams. In many countries, governments just closed museums and expected them to go online without equipping them first. We are watching great examples in some big museums, but they have a whole department dealing with digital contents, while majority of museums have no a single employee qualified in this kind of work. And the question is how to secure income online for institutions whose main cost lies in collection care and maintenance of premises. Such thoughts may guide us in setting the future goals for us. We need to stabilize the museum in order to make people going forward, to have secure premises for people, for staff, and for people who are entering the museums. But there are certain financial realities. All museums had to cut their budgets for a significant amount in 2020. In 2021, things do not improve. Renovation costs for the buildings that were hit by the earthquake are high. No joint plans exists. Recently, a call has been published on national level in Croatia to secure support for the institutions, but they apply individually to calls, and many are not well prepared. It will be really helpful to have a large scale and well coordinated plans, as one of our keynote speakers mentioned. And of course, we are not out of the crisis yet. We have to see how to pull every lever to get support museums need, and they are so depending on governmental support, local or national, no, just to focus on public museum at the moment. Of course, we have to be proactive. For example, I have picked up some do's and don'ts that can help us in gaining focus. But there is no success recipe, no guarantee that the things will work. If we are persisting in pushing our goals, opportunities may appear. However, for public institutions, at least, there should be a known agenda after a year has passed since the outbreak of the pandemics and the first devastating earthquake. Not only that the present crisis is long-lasting, there will be other crises following. Many are on the global agenda already. They will influence people's mobility, and our sector really depends on that. So better to be prepared. On institutional level, we have to keep in mind how to execute the museum mission and serve the community. It is vital that museums do not focus only on themselves and their needs. Difficulties are shared. People need relevant approach. People need support in such crises. Many lost their jobs and their incomes are reduced. They have been locked down for many months, so they have to see how museums can offer help and comfort. Perhaps the term empowerment of people by museums may gain a new meaning in this crisis. The implications on museum staff are visible. They have to adopt a broader view and see what solutions are there in the field, new ways of collecting, new ways of addressing the audience. This also sparks innovation and creativity, and museum people have always been good at this. They just have to find strength and show what they can do. Of course, it is not easy to manage new challenges, and some people get lost, lose faith in others, had not managed to build proper bonds and trust. This puts additional stress. Some exhaust themselves in analysis paralysis, mourning for good old days and how we used to work. A wake-up call is needed, really. The change is huge. Exhibition, fieldwork, international exchange, traveling, visiting museums, also our conference here, everything gone from the real world. Many things went online, but we are still employed. relatively safe in public institutions, and we have to deliver. So, how to plan our activities in 2020? This year shows no signs of relaxations. We have been trying to gather the pieces of advice around and somehow set a trail for us. Of course, every institution is doing the same. Although it is easy for museums to think out of the box, when innovative approaches to audiences are sought, still many museum professionals rest assured that the public awareness of museums' importance will stay high among social priorities in spite of the severe decrease in budgets. And UN Trade Unit, I think, estimated that the last year's COVID pandemic actually cost the global economy $1 trillion. So this is unimaginable amount. Going online offers a variety of possibilities, but you have to master new platforms in order to seize their potential and pick up the right format in order to reach the target group. It is different if your audience is broad, everybody, or you are addressing the group of your co-workers, museum professionals, and friends of the museum. Whoever tried to engage unknown people to take part in the activity your institution is organizing knows that it is not an easy job. Many experts are trying to define engagement and try to see how successful they are in involving their audiences in learning, entertaining museum programs, or simply virtual events. Some attempts are rewarding, but there are many challenges too, and things do not always go as planned, especially if you lack the proper resources. Museum professionals also have to ask themselves how to measure the impact they have on audiences, whose criteria we follow, and how we assess people's feedback. So we really have to do our best in our field. We have to create more emphatic institutions, not simplify ourselves as just collection carers. We are neighbors, we are people who live with other peoples. And in times of crisis, our roles should gain new forms and greater visibility. Thank you.